Hello and welcome to episode 306 of the Stacey West podcast. I am your host, Gary, and this evening I shall be joined by Charlie Beeston, fan of the year. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Looking forward to the season starting now. We're just over 2 weeks out. I'm doing Harrogate this weekend, which is my first pre-season friendly, so properly getting back into it.
Are you going to do a lap of honour with your plate?
I am. I'm taking it with me. It's already in the bag ready. No, I am.
You got it there somewhere, have you? Have you slept with it?
Do you know what it is? I think it is. It is here. Look. Yeah. There you go. Look. And this is awful for audio listeners, but we've got the play. Have you got yours?
Mine's on display.
Let's compare.
There we go. So we've both been fan of the year now. Through the let me just pop that back up there through the Reddim's Community Trust supporter of the year. So do you know what? Actually, it is an honour. It was nice. Unfortunately, I was given mine by Mark Kennedy, and it was one of the first moments. I remember him passing me it, and I was really thrilled to meet him. And he said, "Oh, thank you for everything you do for us." And it was the first moment I thought, "How do you know what I do? You've only been there 5 minutes." Do you know what I mean? And he couldn't really have said or done anything else. So, no, great honour. And congratulations, Charlie, for getting that.
Thank you.
Personally, I nominated Bubs, but you don't get everything you want.
So did I, actually.
Did you?
For the record, yeah.
Did you really? We both nominated Bubs.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, he wasn't selected this year. But he got his own little Stacey West honour, which I'm sure he'll have appreciated much more than anything else anyway.
Yeah, if you had printed me on a 3D printer, I don't think I would appreciate it as much as I do having a silver plate up there that engraved. But it's the thought that counts, isn't
it? That's a very fair point.
It is. Right. Well, we're not here to talk about who's got the biggest trophy, because they're the same size, obviously. But we are here to talk about Lincoln City Football Club, and it is getting close. Now, for those of you listening at home, watching, etc., we are planning on doing 2 podcasts next week, which are going to be our 1 to 24 predictions. So the Stacey West team, the 4 of us, are going to put our predictions in. We're going to come up with a singular table, and then Chris and I are going to count it down from 24 all the way to 1, mainly because Charlie is already doing one on another platform, and that will be over 2 parts. So you'll have the bottom half, I believe, on Sunday, possibly, and then the top half the week out. Oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? It'll be Thursday, and then
you're doing Thursday and Sunday, aren't you?
Yeah, I am doing Thursday and Sunday. So, so there's that to look forward to. What do we have to look forward to on today's show? It's almost like a table of contents going in at the moment. So first of all, Charlie and I are going to be talking about incomings. We're going to then be talking about Tyler Walker's injury. There's an interesting debate on social media about the Lincoln United friendly. Should we be sending a full-strength side? Was there a benefit of the academy players going? So we're going to be debating that. And crucially, this is really interesting. I have had a conversation today with a representative from the club about Lincoln City women. Now, there's some ambiguity around what's happening with Lincoln City women. There's no coaching staff at the moment. Most of the players have left. There's a real fear from some supporters that Lincoln City women won't be kicking off the season. I'm going to be able to allay those fears to a certain degree, but we're going to come onto that at the end of the show. And instead, we're going to start with sign-ins. Let's do them chronologically. For Ben, if he's listening, that means as they happened in time. And we're going to start with Dom Jeffries. So Dom Jeffries actually happened last week on the show. So we are only really going to recap, I think, a little bit on this. Honest truth, I think you spoke to a Gillingham fan this week. Is that correct? Or was it Ben did it?
No, I did. I spoke with Matt Olsen, formerly of still on the Real EFL about what he thought about Dom Jeffries, and honestly, really, really positive. Really disappointed, I think, from the Gillingham point of view, that they've lost him. And that he has moved on, but they're also not surprised that he's moved on to bigger and better things. Obviously, I think you mentioned on the pod last week the links with Millwall at one point, so he was always going to be going to a higher club. So it's kind of good for us that maybe if he was looking at championship clubs and we've been able to bring him in, again, that's kind of a string to our bow in terms of the recruitment team, that we are able to convince players to come to us rather than the likes of a Millwall. But yeah, really, really positive. I think when you look at the social media comments immediately at 6 o'clock, what was it, last Thursday, this time last week, and you just scrolled through some of the Gillingham fans' comments, they were very similar to what we spoke about with Ali Smith by the Colchester fans. Consistently positive, talking about how much of a bright future the player's got ahead of him, and how lucky the new club are to have got him. So for that, immediately as a fan, any kind of worries or concerns that you could have had about a player that, let's be honest, many people may not have heard of, are immediately sort of eased.
Yeah, I mean, we signed Ali Smith from Sutton, not Colchester, but it's all right, Ben. Don't worry.
No, I was on about after the Colchester loan, just talking about how that comments. So, yeah, you can try that one, right? I knew what I meant.
I've done a little bit of digging, because my initial reaction was, okay, so what is Dom Jeffries? Because you look at, I mean, we hear that he's a runner. He works hard. He scraps hard. There are no real evidence of a high level of goals and assists. So I'm not thinking kind of an 8 to 10, which I know people hate it when I talk about numbers. We're not talking about a Tom Bayliss or a JJ McKinnon. They're very much at the head of the midfield. We're not talking about an Ethan Arahan. And I think what's really important here is, my gut feeling is that Jeffries has come in as the McGrandles or the Ethan Hamilton alternative, the Ethan Hamilton kind of 1-for-1, 1-for-1. But then McGrandles was that as well. You wonder if maybe an opportunity arose for us to take Jeffries, and we've gone, do you know what? We've got a little bit of money. We've got this, we've got that. We'll take it. I still think if Ethan Arahan goes, we sign a midfielder to replace him. I don't, unless it's right at the end of the window and we go, well, actually, that's too good an offer to refuse. We'll be okay for 6 months. But then I don't think it's Dom Jeffries that plays there. I think it's Conor McGrandles. So I think with Dom Jeffries, we've actually got a young Ethan Hamilton type player, but without the goals. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what he does. I love a midfielder. I've made that abundantly clear in the past. I love a 6, if I'm honest. I like a scrapper, a fighter, a Scott Kerr, an Ethan Arahan, a Liam Bridcut. I love all of that. John Finnegan was a little bit like that. The Makalele role, I think it used to be called, didn't it? Wasn't that the thing? So yeah, where Dom Jeffries fits in is exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It gives us so many more options in midfield, as we spoke about as soon as it came in. That was something like our 7th or 8th first team midfielder that we had on the books then. And I agree with you, by the way, if Ethan Arahan does go, we still don't have that perfect replacement for him, I don't really think you can replace somebody like Ethan Arahan. But I think then what we're doing is we're covering ourselves off with having such a strong midfield that even if he does go and we bring somebody in who then maybe doesn't quite live up to that same expectation, we have cover all around that area of the pitch, which is something I'm hoping we can do. Also, Dom Jeffries seems, the last season and the season before, to have been deployed in so many different areas across the Gillingham midfield. Sometimes he was playing more as a defensive midfielder, sometimes a little bit further forward as a box-to-box, similar to that kind of Ethan Hamilton role. Sometimes even more as a 10, sometimes out as like a right or left midfielder as well, in like a midfield 5 that they sometimes deploy. So having that versatility in somebody that's clearly comfortable enough to be chucked into those different positions, I think is exactly what we want, especially considering the amount of conversations that fans have had, whether they're being had behind closed doors at the stadium, I don't know, but that fans have had about what system are we going to be playing this season? Are we going to be sticking with exactly what we're doing? Are we going to be moving to a fallback? We don't know. We can read into what's happening in the pre-season friendlies, but until the season starts, we don't fully know. So I think having a versatile player like that in the midfield that can play in all of those different types of roles is exactly what you need as we're building squad depth.
Yeah, no, I know. There's no ambiguity, is there? We're playing 3 at the back. We haven't signed wingers.
I think so.
We haven't signed wingers. We've signed we're going to come on to it in a minute. Tom Hamer, we've got 5 centre forwards, albeit one injured now. Yeah, we're playing 3-5-2. I don't think, it's. I appreciate you kind of highlighting the versatility. I genuinely, actually, I'm not sure whether that's really, it's the versatility. It's a vertical versatility. Whether it's 6, 8, 10, there's that. I can't see us then going, he's going to play left back. I think the squad depth at the minute, we are trying desperately to avoid that, what we had last season, where we were occasionally having to play who played in midfield, holding midfield, Danny Mandroyu, attacking midfield, Jack Moy. Do you know what I mean? I think we're trying to avoid that. But you talk about versatility. Tom, if you turn to versatility in the dictionary, a certain special dictionary, mine here, there's a picture of Tom Hamer, because I think literally he has played everywhere for Burton, across the back, left back, right wing back, left wing back. 24 years old. He was the second. I think he was the next signing chronologically.
Yes.
One we expected. I think we expected a right-sided centre half. We expected somebody who was going to come in and replace Alex Mitchell. I know that'll break your heart, but that really is what Tom Hamer's come in to do. He's the Alex Mitchell replacement. Mitchell was playing on the right side. Hamer is going to come in and play on the right side. Now, I've commented this, I think, on social media, but something I really liked about Tom Hamer was on his pictures. They sit in the stadium and they smile and they point to the badge and it's a nice sunny day and everything's brilliant. He's had his whether it's his wife or girlfriend, I assume wife and kid in it. And just something that just resonated with me about the type of person that Tom Hamer is. And chatting to people around the club, they say he's kind of a down to earth, no nonsense, northern lad, just wants to play his football, all that sort of stuff. I think he's going to be a fan favourite in the same way that, dare I say, sacrilege, the same way that Alex maybe was, the same way that before he got a little bit wayward on the old betting apps, the same way that Bradley Wood was as well.
Yeah, I think that actually stood out to me as well. He just seemed to be a perfect fit for the football club and for the sort of players that we go for. When we've heard from the recruitment team, when we're looking at players, we're not just looking at what they can do on the pitch, but we're looking at their personalities off it. Because if we don't have a dressing room that is completely in unison, and we're starting to have divisions and things like that, then it affects what happens on the pitch. So you want all of the characters to be at one in the club. And I also think we've started seeing that with the players that we've currently got. I think, I don't know if you saw Lewis Monsma put something on his Instagram story yesterday of him playing table tennis with Jovan McCarmer, and Jovan getting really riled up because he was losing, but they were having a great laugh about it. And they're two players that, okay, Lewis has been out injured for quite a period of time. Jovan has kind of been on the fringes and then brought more into the squad setting, into the first team setting. I wouldn't have necessarily predicted them to have been two close friends, but obviously they have. And things like that are brilliant when you're seeing that as a fan for your team to be doing. And yeah, hopefully Tom Hamer then can come in and do just that. I agree with what you're saying on the versatility, him being that replacement for Alex on that right centre-half role. Again, we've got an abundance of talent in that position. Adam Jackson and Paudie O'Connor are coming into their final years of their contracts. It's going to be interesting to see what the next 12 months holds for them two as players. But again, now we've got minimum three, Lewis to come back in to the fray as well after maybe a month in August where he might not be ready to be playing a full first team game. But we've already got three that are going to be fighting for those two positions if we're assuming Sean Rowan is maybe going to have that left-sided centre-half role as his own again. So real positive signing, I think.
Yeah, do you think that makes recruitment tough though now? Because it's generally accepted we're probably going to want to sign another left centre-half. We've operated on 2 for every position generally over the last few years, really since Dan and Nick, when we only really had 3 centre forwards or whatever. But Sean Rowan plays our left centre half. He is an asset. This club will look at Sean Rowan as an asset. He may only have a year left on his contract. We offer him a new deal at the end of that. He either signs it or goes somewhere else. And there's that kind of development tribunal. We've had him since he's 16. If he goes when he's 22, we've got 6 years development. That's going to be a big, big fee. So he's either ours or he's an asset. You know what I mean? But then if we go out and go, right, we need to sign a left centre half, and that left centre half looks at the squad and goes, well, you got Sean Rowan. It's what we suffered from the Mark Kennedy summer when we named Tom Hopper as captain. because again, I'm led to believe that there were one or two centre forwards that we may have wanted to bring in on loan, and they go, well, we're not going to play because you centre forward, your captain. And it's a little bit like England at the Euros, isn't it? Like, everybody knows Harry Kane should have been dropped by the time we got to the knockout stages, but he wasn't because he's captain. Now, I know Sean Rowan's not captain, but it could be an issue with recruitment, couldn't it?
It could, but then does that maybe mean that in terms of recruiting in that area, we're willing to go to maybe a 20-year-old centre-half who is ready to be playing in League One, but isn't quite ready to be starting 46 games a season, and saying, look, you give us your all for this season, we're going to give you the opportunities next season because we're maybe expecting Sean Rowan to be moving on unless we move up. You'll get that sort of starting role position, and kind of offering them a bit of a deal like that as a potential.
It's interesting. It's also interesting what you said there about Pordy and Adam Jackson, because obviously I think they are the two that will fight for the middle of the centre half area. I think Lewis is likely to be in and out of the side while he builds his fitness, and then he'll be challenging Tom Hamer. Lewis, remember, can play on the left. I mean, he's a good footballer. Of the centre halves that we've seen, we haven't seen Tom Hamer, but we know for a fact that Lewis is probably the better footballer than any of them, and that's with absolute respect to all of our centre halves. But I still think we'll bring one in. I still think that we'll look to recruit, and like you say, it might be young. And
Is that me or Gary? Oh, no, it was me. No, it was Gary. Well, I'm here on my own because Gary has cut out. Oh, and now he is back.
No idea. No idea what happened there at all. All of a sudden, everything just went blank. I've got full internet.
I was worried it was me, so I was just kind of sat here looking around at my internet.
I thought you'd muted your microphone because you froze and I was talking. So yeah, I think we're talking about left centre halves. And my thought on the left centre half is that we sign a Dylan Duffy / Jack Moylan type player. So one where you go, like you say, you're going to come in and not want a full season, but want to be involved. A lot like the boy that's just gone to Exeter, whose name I'm not going to try. Well, I'm going to try and pronounce it. Yefko. He was he's been at Rangers recently. He played left back or left centre half. I mean, obviously him in particular, but it isn't the one. But I think it might be a player a little bit like that.
Yeah, I think that's the best option in terms of squad harmony as well. Because, like I say, Sean Rowan has shown his consistency, but then we definitely need some kind of backup. Because obviously you just simply never know. We dealt with that enough last season, so we're going to want that squad depth. I wouldn't be too opposed to a left centre half who could then potentially be playing out on the left wing back as cover as well, just in case there were some games where we wanted to have maybe a more defence-minded left wing back. I doubt it, but it's just something I'd like just to kind of cover every sort of role across the pitch. Is that potentially even Zach Bradshaw? I think from what we can gather, it might just be a little bit too early, but he was playing it in the pre-season friendlies so far. He definitely was playing against Preston in the game that I watched, and he seemed to impress in that game, actually. I thought he did quite a solid job, and he was on the pitch for at least 60 minutes. He wasn't one of the ones that was brought off at half-time. So is there potentially the idea to be having him in that first-team squad for this season? I don't know.
Yeah, there could be, but then you look at, we're going to talk a bit about friendlies in a bit, but you look at like Boston United a couple of years last year when we had Hayden Cann and Lee Huey and stuff like that. So I think it's sometimes hard to read into friendlies, but it's a fair point. In squad depth, I counted up yesterday, I think 27 first team players. We were obviously going to look at loaning a couple of those out. You would imagine that Oshin will go out on loan. You'll imagine that Jay Ben will go out on loan or permanent potentially. Certainly one of the keepers is going to go out. So, I get the impression that will come down a little bit. Zach, who knows? Who knows? You only have to look at Jovan, and I want to talk about Jovan when we talk about injuries to strikers a little bit later on. But you only have to look at Jovan to understand that a player can come from nowhere, let's say. So, it's really interesting. One other thing about Tom Hamer, he's got a big throw. Now, I picked up on it in a report after we lost to Burton a year or two ago, that every time we got anywhere near the area, the ball came in. Now, Hax's throw was interesting. It was a good long throw. One really worked. And then after that, it was, we're not really making the most of it. Do you think we're a little bit more rounded this time so that we can probably make a little bit more of those long throws? I mean, Hamer's were, I think, if I remember, a little bit more kind of up, over and in, a little bit more like a corner than a shot, which is what Hax's were like.
Yeah, I think it's another string to the bow in that sense. It's something that the set piece team at the club, Scott Fry, who I believe still does all of our set pieces on the training pitch, they'll create loads of different scenarios. We won't use it every time. I wouldn't have thought every time the ball gets near the penalty area. I don't think we're going to be kind of one-trick ponies in that sense, because we've got players that can have the ball at their feet and use it. Sometimes that's where Burton have maybe lapped with one or two of their players in over the past couple of seasons, but it's definitely something that I can see us using. And yeah, when you bear in mind the squad, I mean, Freddie Draper, tall lad at striker, if we can get the ball onto his head, for example, could there potentially be the opportunity for a goal or two in there? I think we've got a slightly taller squad on average when you look at some of the players now than what we have done, even in the early stages of when Hax was using his. So again, it's something that we'll use, but I don't think it's something that will make an absolute staple of the team.
Nah, balls to that. Get it in the mixer. That's what you want to do. You get a throw in. If you can put the ball in the area, put the ball in the bloody area. You don't score goals from passing it 3 yards, do you?
You can tell we're from different generations, can't you?
Get it in the mixer. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, that's what you want to do. I love it. I remember when the long throw first came through. Who was the name? His name's on the tip of my tongue. The Stoke lad.
Oh, Delap.
Yeah. And his throw-ins were going in, and it was like a corner, and everyone was terrified of him. You don't know what you're going to do, and get him in the mixer. That's what I say. Now, if we face somebody with a long throw, one thing you always want to see is your goalkeeper coming and claiming it. And at 6'5", Lucas Jensen was superb at coming and claiming crosses. He won't be our goalkeeper. But the final transfer story that we're going to talk about before we move on to other topics is that of George Wickens. Now, George Wickens is, I believe, 6'5". I know he's a big lad because I was in 200 degrees yesterday and he came in and literally as he walked past, I'm like, my God, there's a guy there standing on someone's shoulders walking past me. He's a big boy. Really interesting signing. Look, it was kind of hinted at last week on the show. There was lots of talk of it. As I understand it, we weren't the only team in for George Wickens. There has been a fee that we've paid for him as well. But I think this transfer made a real statement to supporters, because I think when Lucas went, there was a general acceptance. We'll go back to loaning a player, because we signed Lucas because the opportunity was there, but we're not going to be able to go out and sign a keeper permanently every time. What have we done? We've waited a week, bang, gone out, signed a goalkeeper that, as I understand it, Fulham would have kept. I think they would like to have kept him, but I think the boy wants to play football. He wants to get out there. He was at Ross County. He was outstanding for them. Big signing, isn't it? Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, what my kind of immediate thinking with this is George Wickens is this type of goalkeeper that I think even a few years ago we'd have been more than happy to have on loan. And even this season, we'd have potentially still been happy to have him on loan. A young Premier League keeper, really respected by the club that he's at, wanted by plenty of other EFL clubs by all accounts, had sort of a good reputation from his other playing time, at Ross County. I think if this was a loan move, we'd be talking reasonably pleased about it. But this is a permanent signing on. Am I right saying it's a 4-year deal for Wickens as well? That is the definition of a statement signing, as you're saying. I think it's absolutely brilliant that we've been able to get somebody like this through the door. Losing Jensen was always going to be a big hit this summer. I think it potentially still could be a big hit. But I think on paper, I mean, first of all, I've always got faith nowadays in the recruitment at the club that they're going to make the right decisions. And with goalkeeper, it is so important having that one position that you are making the right decision. On paper, this looks like they've done that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any ambiguity, by the way, that he's the number one. I know one or two people will say, no, well, who's the number one keeper? Because I think Zach Cheacock impressed in one or two of the pre-season games that he's played in. And I think people are looking at him going, well, is he the number two? But Jamie Partington will be the number two, I think, Zach Geacock will go out on loan and get games, but people have liked the look of Zach. We could have one there, as we did with Jordan Wright. We could have one there that is going to develop. If he develops and we sell him and he doesn't play a game for us, that's not always a bad thing if we've signed him for nothing. Jordan Wright, I think, came in on a free. We turned him around for a profit as well. And Chris, I was chatting to Chris on the Real EFL podcast the other day about goalkeepers. We had to pretend more or less we weren't Lincoln City fans, which was hilarious. And we can't put our finger on what it is, but we've done really well with keepers. I can't remember the last time we had what I would call a shit goalkeeper. I can't remember. Josh Griffiths made a couple of errors, but he was a decent keeper. He was the weakest of all from Alex Palmer, arguably even from Josh Wickens. He's probably the weakest post-COVID. And you're talking about an England under-21 international. Do you know what I mean? So, but going back to George Wickens, I think he's going to be interested. If he's come here, he wants to play. He's a young goalkeeper. It might be tough at first, but I think the club are particularly excited about it. And it's just another permanent signing. We haven't got a loan player in yet, Charlie, at all.
No, we haven't. Are we even going to get one the way that this window is going? The amount of players that we've already brought in, the squad size that you've already spoken about, like every time a deal's coming through at the minute, and obviously it is another permanent, I'm starting to think that we just might not even utilise the loan market. I'm sure we will. I'm sure there'll be like a deadline day signing because somebody becomes available. I think that's kind of the tack we're taking nowadays with the loan players. But it is, again, really refreshing. Like I said, a long-term contract for somebody that's young, exciting in terms of sort of the pedigree that he's coming in with. Like you say, Fulham wanted to keep hold of him. In England Youth International as well, as far as I'm aware, with Wickens. So I think everything about this is another step forward. That's saying that, even though we've lost somebody as good as what Lucas Jensen was. Not saying that he's going to come in and immediately be better than Lucas Jensen. Not a fortune teller. I don't know 100%. But I think in terms of the profile of what we've done here, it is a better signing.
Yeah, you kind of almost touched upon a really good point there. Almost touched upon it. So
almost. I'll try and get closer next time. Yeah.
Half a congratulations. Because actually, like for like, George Wickens and Tendai Deriqua are probably not at the same level as Lasse Sorensen and Lucas Jensen were. Certainly, Lucas Jensen is a more proven goalkeeper than George Wickens. Not saying he's a better goalkeeper, but on paper you would say that we're slightly weaker in that position. Deriqua, just purely because of the age, you might say we're slightly weaker in that position. But then you look at the overall squad. We look at the Dom Jeffries, we look at the Tom Baylesses, we look at the JJ McKinnon, and I know we're talking about all these different signs we're excited about. I get the impression JJ McKinnon is one that the people at the club are really excited about. They think that he's going to be a boy that if he catches fire, he's going to go and could earn his money. You look at the Tom Hamers, you look across the back, you look at where we've kind of strengthened up front. It's impressive. And you look at that strike force. You and I were privy to a conversation with a club insider, let's say, in December, where we were kind of given a little bit of an overview of where they thought the squad might be in the summer. And they said our forward line going into next season, it will be Ben House, Freddie Draper, and Tyler Walker. And obviously Joven kind of be in the mix.
Yeah.
Now we've got 5 strikers. Joven's in the mix. Rob Street. Overall, the money that's come in, I think, for Lucas and Lass has enhanced the squad, even if like for like. There's not question. When I say question marks, I don't mean to doubt Wickens. I don't mean to doubt Deriqua, but you understand what I mean. There's kind of it remains to be seen. Are they better than Lass?
This was actually exactly a point I was making. I was having this conversation with a couple of guys over at the Real EFL last night, and we were talking about predicting our sort of League One tables. And I had Lincoln, arguably a little bit too high from what I actually think might be the case, but I had Lincoln in a certain position and they were considerably lower. They had us lower mid-table. Well, it's like 13th, 14th. And their argument was basically, the squad is weaker than what it was last season because you've lost Jensen, you've lost Sorensen, you've replaced them, with these 2 players, but are they really better and all of this? My argument is actually the squad on a whole is probably better already. that is potentially a little bit of a stretch, and I'm happy to have it as, not quite better yet, but I think it's about better because of the squad depth that we've brought in, because of the fact that we're replacing certain positions with not just a like-for-like replacement, but 2 players per position. I still think we might need another right wing back personally, as well as Deriqua. I think hopefully he'll be playing for the full 46 games, but I prefer to have somebody else in that, similar to the situation as we've spoken about with the left centre half, maybe a little bit younger, that can cover for maybe 20, 30 games throughout the season, coming off the bench, things like that if is needed. And then Deriqua, bearing in mind he's only on a 1+1 deal, we can then look to have this other guy coming in and sort of playing a full 46 in the 25-26 season. And I think overall, when we're looking at the squad, when we're looking at the 5 strikers, when we're looking at all of these midfielders, when we're looking at the fact we've already got all of these defenders. Do you know, a few weeks back, I was sat here anyway saying, I think we're going to need at least 2 centre-backs to come in because it feels like we're really light in that area. I'm looking at the squad list now and I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. Lewis Monsper's going to be coming back from injury and hopefully going to be able to play a part. We've got Jacko and O'Connor. We've got Rowan. We've now got Hamer. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, maybe we'll need another, but we've got a really strengthened defence. We've got a really strengthened midfield. We've got a really strengthened attack. We've got 3 goalkeepers, 2 who are obviously younger and hopefully are going to be more project signings. And then we've got Wickens, who is also very young on a 4-year deal as well. At the minute, the squad looks complete, and I don't even think it is yet.
No, it's not yet. I think we sign a right wing back. I think we probably that's what we might look in the loan market. I think the same may go for a left centre back, but I think that we're cool with it. I think if the season kicked off tomorrow and the deadline was suddenly thrust upon us, we would be in a better place than many of our rivals. Obviously not Birmingham, but we'd be in a place where you go, well, actually, we can manage with this squad. The one thing that may trip us up is injuries. We know for a fact that Ethan Hamilton won't be back until, I believe, mid-September might be when we're expecting Ethan Hamilton back. As I understand it, I don't think it's imminent. Conor McGrandles, there's a little bit of ambiguity around that because the last official confirmation was that he was going to go for a scan, but there is a suggestion that he may miss the start of the season. And then the big one that I really want to talk about is Tyler Walker. Now, first of all, I believe that the Tyler Walker injury is the catalyst for us potentially going out and signing a lone striker. I don't think, if you're listening at home now and you think, ooh, Gary said lone striker, there's nothing imminent. I don't think there's anything imminent. I think it's where we go. Do you know what? If the season kicks off and we go in with Ben House and Rob Street and Jovan McCarmer and Freddie Draper, we're happy with that. But if on deadline day, somebody suddenly becomes available or something happens, and I'm not talking like a Jack Vale here, I'm talking like not an out-and-out striker, but like a Morgan Whitaker or a Liam Cullen, actually, who I think didn't do as badly as Luke Plange. But I think if one of those types of players come available, we go, well, actually, we'll take that, and that will just strengthen what we've got. But let's just rewind it to Tyler's injury. God, do you know what? I wouldn't want to walk under a ladder if I was him because he's just had the worst luck.
It's absolutely horrible for him, I'm sure. It's really difficult to kind of look on and talk about this because obviously we've hardly seen him playing back in a Lincoln shirt since he signed this time last year. And bearing in mind, when he signed, he was the marquee signing of the summer for a lot of fans. We immediately jumped on here and did a live stream about it as soon as he came in, because obviously he was announced with the away shirt as well, wasn't he? And it was just kind of really exciting. It really had this immediate buzz around the place that Tyler Walker's back. And unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out in the same way that we hoped it would. And obviously, last summer's deadline day, we went into deadline day thinking, we don't need a striker. We've got Ben House, we've got Tyler Walker, we've got Freddie Draper, who's just gone out on loan, we've got Jovan McCarmer in and around, Danny Mandroy or Rico Hackett can play striker if needed. We'll be fine. Obviously, we then brought Jack Vale in, but then 2 days later, Ben House and Tyler Walker both out injured. And it just kind of changed everything for the first half of the season, as we know. Tyler, to be injured again is just such a shame for him because we know what he can do. And what actually was a bigger shame personally was seeing all of the comments on social media blasting him, saying we need to get
out all the fans on the podcast, Charlie, do we?
No, we don't, which is why I'm not saying any particular fans. But
You're
I
just
just
calling
think
all fans, which is worse. But
yeah,
carry on.
yeah. I just think there was a sentiment that it was a waste and it was the wrong decision and all of this. I don't think it was the wrong decision at all. I think it was an absolutely correct decision because he was available. We wanted him, obviously, and he wanted to come back to us. The fact it hasn't worked out so far doesn't mean that it won't. Hopefully, if he is only out for 3 months, I know Skubala actually said, what was it, minimum 3 months, but let's just say it is 3 months, and he then can come back for 6-7 months of the rest of the season and make an impact. Can't write anything off yet.
See, I think it's a difficult one. I didn't like some of the comments aimed at Tyler Walker, but I absolutely understood them because football fans invest money into their club. The club then invests money into players, and so I understand the place of frustration they came from. I don't think that it was it wasn't personal. I don't think a Tyler one or two was personal, but whatever. But generally, I do get that frustration. I think that this is quite bad news for Tyler because 3 months down the line, so what we are now, July, August, September, October. So he comes back in October. He's match fit in November. By that time, we're already on a roll, and we're only a month and a half away from the transfer window opening, where it might be somebody's available. I think it's really bad news, and I really feel for him. I hear that he came back really fit and firing. I think he was in working all through the summer, so even while the rest of the team were on the holidays, Tyler Walker was in at the training ground. He was doing all of his rehabilitation. He put everything into coming back in. However, one thing that I do disagree with you on, hindsight tells you it was the wrong decision to sign him. Now, at the time, it was the right decision. It was, and that's the thing with transfers. Hindsight will tell us we shouldn't have signed Chris Maguire. Hindsight will tell us we shouldn't have signed Hakeem Adelican. But at the time, Hakeem Adelican and Chris Maguire, in my eyes, were like, yeah, these are the players that we're going to need. These will help the younger players on. These will do this and that. At the time, people looked at Lass, and 6 months down the line, looked at Lass, and they were like, well, there's no need. Well, that wasn't right. So was signing Tyler Walker the right thing to do at the time? Yes. Was it the right thing to do with hindsight? Well, missing 8-9 months last season and now missing another 3 months, a 2-year deal, and you've missed as a minimum a year of that? Probably not. But that's no criticism of anybody. That's no criticism of the club, who made, in my opinion, the right decision at the time, which is, I think, what you were getting at. It's no criticism on Tyler, who didn't come here thinking, brilliant, I've got 2 years to sit around on the treatment table. He's going to be feeling this more than anyone. He's the one that can't earn his money. He's the one that in a year's time, let's be brutally honest, he's probably going to be looking for a new club with an injury record that's going to put off almost everybody who's willing to pay decent wages. So it's him I feel for in the middle of all of this most.
Absolutely. It's such a hit for him, and he must have such a big amount of mental strength to kind of be getting through that at the minute, because it has effectively rendered this move, I'm not saying pointless, because obviously it isn't, but it's really kind of hit this whole move. And now his trajectory, rather than coming to Lincoln to try and get properly back on track and build himself back up towards a championship striker, if anything, now it's a downwards trajectory. Which
he's fighting when he comes back fit. He's fighting to not save his career, but he's fighting at his age as well. What is he, 26 now, something like that, 27 possibly,
probably about 27 now. Yeah,
he's got a big thing on his hands. He's got a big fight professionally, as I understand it. He's the right attitude, he's the right application, he's the right mentality. But I feel for him. Now, the one person that I think this does benefit, and I hate saying that because I don't think anybody looks at it and goes, oh, great. But Jovan. Now, I've got to keep talking about Jovan, because a year ago, as you correctly mentioned, Jack Vale came in, he was injured, Tyler got injured, Ben got injured, and we were saying we've got no strikers. Jovan was there. Hey, look at me, I'm a striker. And everyone's kind of like, well, we've got no strikers. Jovan, no strikers. Oh. And even then, kind of, you got to Christmas, and it's like Jovan's coming on. Oh, is he? Okay. And you know that he's got the right attributes, because he's big, he's quick, he's strong. He's showing actually that he can finish. He missed a few sitters, by the way, last season. Derby, I seem to remember a sitter he missed. And then the second half of the season, he kicked right on. funny you should mention about Lewis. As I understand it, I think there's a little bit of mentoring going on there. I think that they are two people who are kind of gelling a little bit. I think this is a big opportunity for Jovan, because I think he is standing out in pre-season. And by the way, if you're standing out while Preston North End's manager is watching, or Leeds United's manager is watching, that's not a bad thing to do, because all you need to do is catch the eye, and then you go on a list. And when you're on a list, they start looking at attributes, and Jovan's stats are not too bad at all. I do think we sign another striker. I think let's not rule out Jovan Makama as I can't believe I'm going to say this after the criticism I gave him last year early doors. Jovan Makama as a first team striker, just like Rob Street, Ben House, and Freddie Draper is.
If we don't bring another striker in, I'm not disappointed. That's my view on the rest of the transfer window now, because we've got Jovan, and because of what Jovan he was able to kick on. And bear in mind, like you say, there was lots of criticism levelled at him from, sometimes on here, fair, constructive criticism, obviously, but there was lots of criticism levelled at him from across the whole fan base at different times. There was, like I say, groans sometimes when he was coming on the pitch. I remember the Bristol Rovers away game. It's the one I always seem to mention whenever we're talking Jovan, because that was the one where Ben House, Tyler Walker were injured. Jack Bell had come in like the night before, but was injured. That was our first game with no strikers. Jovan Makama came on 20 minutes to go, was putting his body about, but had nothing when the ball was at his feet. He was making the wrong decisions. He looked like a deer in headlights. He just didn't look like he was going to be the person to help take us forward. Second half of the season, he was an invaluable member of the team. I think the shift to having a two up front system really benefited him more than it benefited anybody else in the team. I think having a strike partner is perfect for him. So, again, having 4 strikers with him a key part of that, wouldn't be too upset. I now think that this immediately eradicates any idea of him going out on loan. Personally, I wouldn't send him out on loan now. I think what's best for him is to be in and around the first team environment. Whereas earlier on in the summer, there was conversations about, okay, well, what next for Jovan? Now he's going to get his chances. He's going to get his opportunities, because even if we bring in a lone striker, all it takes is for one other knock or one suspension 1 week, suddenly he can be thrust up into that second or third choice position. Yeah. So he's going to get loads of minutes, especially with the type of profile that he is, can sort of deliver that out ball towards the end of games when we're under the cosh 1-0 up or something like that. I think he'll be able to bag a few goals as well. I can see this being a 5 to 8 goal season for Jovan if he's only getting, let's say, 1,000 to 1,500 minutes.
Interesting, isn't it, as well? Because you always talk about players' development, and you look at the ones that go out on loan and do well, like Fred did. By the way, Fred's come back at pre-season looking like he could rip a phone book in half. That's for those of us who are old enough to remember what the phone book is. But yeah, he definitely looks. He's looking lean, but he's gone out. He's not served his penance, but he's done his time around different clubs and done well at different clubs. Whereas Jovan went to Brackley, 1 game, couldn't get a kick, comes back. And the two of them now are in more or less the same position, even though they've gone on really different trajectories. I find that quite interesting.
Different players develop better in different environments. All you have to do, you mentioned Harry Kane earlier on, all you have to do is look at him. He didn't massively impress in some of his loan spells early doors. With age, he improved, and being in and around that Tottenham first team environment was the best thing for him. And now look at where he is. I'm not saying that's going to be the same for Jovan Makama, but we can always dream. But for Freddie Draper, for Brennan Johnson, for example, he's always the one that people pick out as coming to us and improving, and now moving on to, funnily enough, also being at Tottenham. But he came to us because he wouldn't really be getting a kick in what was then the Chris Hughton Nottingham Forest side. So it was best for him to be out on loan, and that's exactly where he developed. But there are other players in that same team that were getting minutes under Chris Hughton, or maybe were even struggling to get minutes, but felt that it was better to be in and around the first team, and have now kicked on to similar levels. It's not one size fits all on this, and it's kind of good that we're able to recognise as a football club the difference for different players.
Right, so let's move on. Let's have a quick chat about 2 other topics that we've got. We've got 15 minutes to cover them. That's no reflection on how important they are before anybody gets angry with us. So first of all, there was an interesting tweet on social media, and it was about the Lincoln United friendly. So The Imps played Lincoln United in a friendly, and they basically sent an academy team and a guy, Charlie Fitch _C. Lincoln City won the game, by the way, and Charlie's put the result doesn't matter. Lads did well against a professional outfit. He's a Lincoln United fan, by the way. What does matter is Lincoln City didn't bring the first team down again, with a yawning emoji. Community Club with a Pinocchio emoji, and then Scunthorpe or Grimsby fancy a pre-season game next year. So this guy's pretty angry. I mean, he's then Lincoln fans have had a bit of a pop, and he's put some proper honking comments coming in from Imps fans. Isn't it funny how other League One and League Two teams can send a few first-team players down and get a few through the gate? I assume that means gate. Non-league football is dying in Lincoln. Teams struggling more and more every season. Now, I'll give an opinion on this first of all. Again, I think his comments are probably a little bit misplaced, but I actually understand them. The Lincoln United friend, who traditionally was the first friendly of the season, let's say, now it's over in Spain, and it was a good opportunity to see a few first-team players. Now, I do remember, and you won't remember this, Charlie, because you weren't born because you're a fetus, but I remember going to Lincoln United in a friendly. We're talking probably 1999, 2000, and it ended up in a brutal punch-up. I mean, it was absolutely bloodthirsty. I think it was even abandoned. That's how bad it was. That's not the case now. Do Lincoln City have an obligation to Lincoln United, do you think? Do we have an obligation to local non-league teams?
John, I'm really, really torn on this, actually, because we moan about Premier League sending youth teams or whatever and putting them into the EFL trophy. So then if I'm turning around and saying, oh, well, we can just send our kids to go and play Lincoln United, then it's kind of coming from a point of hypocrisy in that sense. But at the same time, I don't think we've got an obligation to any team, to any local team. It's about who benefits most from it. Because, look, Lincoln United, if we go there and we send a team there, they'll benefit much more than what we will. And that's brilliant. That's great. We want local grassroots non-league football to be at the best that it can be. You know, we were all getting behind the Lincoln United hype train last season when they were one game away from Wembley and all of this. And there was loads of Lincoln fans saying they'd go down there, and that's brilliant. So then I guess the sentiment from their side is, well, why can't you come to the pre-season friendly? I don't think the issue here is the team that played. I think the issue here, personally, is the promotion of it. Because I only knew that there was a game yesterday because I saw a comment about it on Facebook yesterday afternoon. I think Lincoln City's academy Twitter account were the ones that were tweeting live updates. It wasn't even from the main account. And I get it because it was an academy team that were playing. But why couldn't we have promoted that better? Why couldn't we have made it a family fun day, done the game on a Sunday afternoon? Obviously, I know schedules can be difficult. Why couldn't we have done something like that to get more people through the door? Have offers for Lincoln United season tickets. I don't have to do full season tickets. Why couldn't we have explored those avenues? Because at the end of the day, we've
just to stop you there. It's not our friendly. We're not the home team. Why are we obligated to explore the family fun day?
When I said ours, I meant working with Lincoln United. Why? There could have even been a collaborative conversation on these are the ideas that we could do, and then they're getting shot down by Lincoln United. We don't know, which is why I'm sort of saying I think the attack on which team is being sent is the wrong attack. The attack should be, if you're going to attack, I mean, I don't think there is really a massive place to attack. No, but if you're going to have those conversations, it should be, okay, well, what can we do next season? Even if this team is going to be the team that you're sending, what can we do next season to at least get a greater benefit from it for both parties? That's fine. Just attacking which team's being sent, for me, it just seems a little bit daft. And also, we've got to take every little advantage that we can get as a League One football club. Football's about marginal gains. And, with all due respect, we're going to have a better preparation during pre-season by playing Walsall, League Two Walsall on a Tuesday afternoon instead of playing Lincoln United on a Wednesday night. That's just the way it is, especially when you bear in mind we've been playing the likes of, Leeds supposedly behind closed doors and other clubs like that. So I think there's a there's a benefit there. I think back to MK Dons in the 22-23 season, right? They'd come out of their playoff campaign. They'd lost in the semi-finals of the playoffs the season before. They'd had a slightly weaker squad over the summer, due to sort of sales that they'd made, but they didn't play a single EFL side in pre-season. They came to the first game of the season, they just looked unprepared. They lost 1-0 in that game against Cambridge, and they ended up getting relegated that season. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to us if we play Lincoln United, but I'm saying it's all about marginal gains. So why shouldn't we be taking advantage of playing championship sides instead of 7th or 8th tier non-league sides?
Yeah, I'll buy that. I do think it's a shame there isn't that celebration of Lincoln. And back in the day, with Pete Doyle was involved with Lincoln United and Rob Bradley, and they did. I think that there was more of a closeness. But I also think that pre-season now is no longer about going and playing friendlies and getting kicked about and putting your full first team out. It's like you say, we've played behind closed doors against Walsall, Leeds. As I understand it, we've got one planned with Norwich, I think, as well. It's all about preparation. It's all about being ready. It was marketed by Lincoln United, by the way, as Lincoln City under 21s. So it is what it is. Yeah, it wasn't marketed particularly by the club massively, but I don't know if that's a failing. There's a couple of people have commented on this. I think it's quite an emotive subject, if I'm honest, and it's probably worthy of a discussion a little further down the line, because we've got a really important subject to talk about still before we finish. So England's CSB says that I think his tweet has done more harm for Lincoln United than good, to be honest. And then he's put lots of people put work into being a community club, from the comms to the foundation. So saying we're not a community club is very small-minded. I think this one individual is clearly quite frustrated, and he's a former director of Lincoln United by the looks of things as well. I'm not criticising him; he's entitled to his opinions. But certainly saying Lincoln City are not a community club is absolutely crazy. However, John Booth quite correctly, Pompey play Gosport Borough, Tier 3 of the non-league, is their first friendly most seasons with a few first teamers involved. Always a great atmosphere and a great fundraiser for Gosport, and I think that is where your comment was, and obviously Jonathan, interestingly, DC cancelled it one year and there was uproar. I think it's worth exploring, but I think there will also be reasons why we haven't gone and played that game. I'm going to move on, Charlie. I see you kind of itching to say something, but this is a really important subject next, and it's also it's kind of a little bit of news. So obviously there's been some questions asked about Lincoln City ladies. Lincoln City women, I beg your pardon, Lincoln City women, over the last couple of weeks. They lost their entire management team. All 3 of the management team left. I believe most of the playing squad left. And as I understand it, there's a handful of players. There's been a lot of questions about whether Lincoln City ladies are even going to kick off next season from supporters. There's been very little communication from the club. So as a respectable Lincoln City podcast, I put a call into some people this afternoon just to have a little bit of a chat about what's happening at Lincoln City women this season. There is going to be a Lincoln City women's side. So there's absolutely no concern whatsoever about that. As I understand it, there is likely to be an announcement around a head coach over the next couple of days. There is a degree of squad building to do. It's been a tough summer, I think, with evaluating what Lincoln City women means to Lincoln City Football Club. And it means a great deal. There's no doubt whatsoever about that. I think the club's ethos that I was kind of let into a little bit, and I'm sure I'm not overstepping the mark when I say this, the club's ethos is very much every young boy and girl across Lincolnshire should have a route to senior football through Lincoln City Football Club. So 10, 12, 13 years old, you want to play football, you're good at it, there should be that route through the football club to get to the seniors. It's a little bit easier probably for young girls at the minute to come through and play for Lincoln City ladies, Lincoln City women. There I go again, Lincoln City women, than it is a youngster to come through and play for Lincoln City men. Appreciated, but there has to be that pathway. And Chris will be somewhere. I can just hear him going, pathway. Now, what's happened over the summer was likened to me to like when the academy. You remember when the academy team won a top division and then all the players were let go because we were restructuring the academy, and in the long term, that's worked out best for the club because the academy generally tends to produce or will be producing players. We've sold Hayden Can, for instance, who kind of came through the full academy. So there is going to be a Lincoln City women's team. There is a long-term plan for Lincoln City women. There is a commitment from the football club. This isn't the case of a football club going, well, the women don't make us, the women's team doesn't make this money, or the women's team isn't commercially viable, this or that. It is a fundamental part of what the football club do. We're a community club, contrary to what maybe a couple of people think about from the friendlies, but we absolutely are. So people who are concerned about Lincoln City women, do sit tight, because there will be some news. As I understand it, I think that it's probably not the easiest. It's not been the easiest summer. I can't go into specifics. I don't know them, but I think that there's been quite a challenging summer behind the scenes with the women's team. But there will be a women's team. They may, maybe a tough start to the season, but there is a real long-term aim with the women, which is good news, Charlie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. We can't exactly go ahead and use the Imps as one kind of tagline without taking into account every single avenue. And also, I think when you look at the university links that have been strengthened this week, there was specific mention in those press releases that those university links aren't just for the men's university team, it's for the women's university team as well. So there could be avenues within that to maybe help bridge that gap between that top level of Lincoln City women and the university side, for example. So overall, it's clear that it's something that the club want to, make sure is challenging at the highest of levels. But this is a transitional summer. It was something that I'd had the idea of, I'd sort of heard behind the scenes that this was going to be a really challenging summer in terms of the women's side. But sometimes those challenging summers are exactly what you need to go for a rebuild. And especially, women's football is massively on the rise at the minute. So the club have got to make sure that they're, kind of tending to that and following on in those footsteps. So it's great news that it's not just kind of being left in the lurch in the back of a cupboard somewhere at the football club, but it is very much high on the priority list.
Yeah, I do think that there will be some, from what I understand, there'll probably be some people around the city who are a little disgruntled at what's happened and not being privy to that. I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, but the club usually have a fairly good long-term vision. And I think I know there's criticism of the academy and there wasn't anyone come through the academy this year, and that's a reflection of how bad the academy is apparently. But at the same time, we've just sold Sam Long, who came through the academy, and we've sold Hayden Can, and we've sold Alicia Huey. So I'm not having that whole debate because people's opinions are theirs. I'm happy to, but the academy is in a better place now than it was. The academy is there to produce professional footballers, ideally for Lincoln City, but it's there to produce professional footballers. And Alicia Huey and Hayden Can and Sean Rowan and Sam Long and Freddie Draper and Jovan McCarmer are professional footballers. Some of those have come from outside the area. I understand that, but they can't come from too far outside the area because there are rules and restrictions on how far you can go and get players from at certain ages. So, and I think that they want the women's team to be a little bit like that. It needs to have that connectivity, I think, to the club. It's not a franchise of the club. It's not it needs to be part of the club, not not up here. And I think initially, probably when the way it came about, I think we took over and renamed Netlham Ladies, if I remember correctly, as Lincoln City Women. There's probably a feeling that it was, we need a women's team, let's go and get one. And then almost we did to Netlham what Notts County did to us. But I really think that there is a desire to keep bringing the women's game in Lincoln forward. So that's good. Yeah, very good. It's it's exactly what we want as a city. Forget the football club for a minute. Just as people that live in Lincoln, it's exactly what you want. You want a thriving football scene for both men and women. Yeah, exactly. Oh, what a lovely note to end a podcast on. So it's been the first one I've done with Charlie for a while, and it's been all right, hasn't it? You're not too bad.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. A break in your schedule from doing all your real EFL stuff and your Gibraltar football stuff and your winning your awards and all that sort of thing.
Busy man, me.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, this was episode 306 of the Stacey West podcast. Unlike the headline that says it's episode 305, because words are my thing, not counting. We will be back with you. I would imagine it's probably going to be next Thursday, contrary to what I said. earlier. I misspoke. It's likely that'll be Chris and I next Thursday doing the 1 to 24s. Then it'll be Chris and I finishing that up. Charlie and Ben will be taking the first podcast of the season after the Burton game, because Chris and I are at a festival and miss that game. So
cheers for the heads up. Lovely.
It's all right. No worries. I'm going to put a rota together later, but people don't need to see that. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for all your support. Please give us a like on social media and Spotify and yada yada yada. And if you are listening to this and you think, well, my Spotify isn't updating, it still says that you're talking about the Portsmouth preview. There's 2 Stacey West accounts, and one of them we're working hard with Spotify to get rid of. It's kind of duplicated, so there is another Stacey West account that does update, so please tell your friends. Other than that, enjoy the weekend's game against Harrogate Town, and we will be back next week. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.